Speaking moistly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speaking Moistly. With me, as usual, is Greg. Greg, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Lots of things going on in the world. COVID's everywhere. We'll talk about COVID. We'll talk about COVID and AstraZeneca and vaccinations and all sorts of crazy stuff that's happening in the world today. But
Yay.
first, I wanted to talk about Scarlett Johansson.
Sounds good.
Yeah. 2 years ago, Scarlett Johansson, I thought this was kind of funny, drops out of a role as a transgender man. Of course, because she's not a transgender man, right? And transgender men should play transgender men roles, maybe? So 2 years later, Elliot Page shows up. Time magazine says Elliot Page is ready for this moment, right? Have you seen all this Elliot Page stuff happening?
I saw this force fed to me on my Twitter feed. It's trending. Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it's really weird because when I see this thing of Scarlett Johansson, I actually think of the time when I saw the new reiteration of the movie Hairspray, where John Travolta plays a woman role.
Yep.
So it's like gender bending has happened plenty of times
Yeah.
in Hollywood, but and along with, people playing different sexes, people playing different races and all this, and like, of course, now we're much more sensitive to all of it. And I think it's kind of, I think it's really silly because it's called acting.
Yeah.
There's amazing things you can do with lighting and all sorts of stuff. And it's really kind of almost insidious how it's like, well, what is their actual specific genitalia and how does it relate to their character? And it's like, whoa, you're really like going into the pants of this person. Like, why can't it just be the art and the movie? Can it just be the movie?
Yeah.
Can it just be the art? Like,
like I loved Apu. I loved Apu to draw a different parallel, but the same one, similar, right?
Sure.
I loved Apu. I loved that character in The Simpsons, and a lot of people thought like he was a successful character who represented a successful community, and he was a much loved character regardless of who played that person in the story. And I agree with you fundamentally within a movie role. I don't know that I watched or even knew about what movie this was, and it's just. This is really just on the way to something that I wanted to talk about. But I think that it's interesting how this is being packaged up and sold as like a positive, self-affirming thing. It's worth spending your time doing this. And once this is done, X will happen. Something will be better somehow.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I understand exactly why the public is being force-fed this, to use your term, as such a positive story. I mean, it's a story and it's fine. Like whatever's happened to Elliot Page is their journey in life and theirs to take as they see fit, and that's fine. But I think that it's weird how it's packaged up and like, this is wonderful and you should do this, which brings me to and what you were saying before, that people are much more sensitive to this. So it brings rise to what I wanted to talk about initially in bringing this up, which is super straight. So have you heard of super straight?
I have heard of super straight. I've recently gotten on TikTok, and it's this trend that's totally exploded, and I think it's really hilarious. And I like that it exists because it kind of exposes how progressives, specifically like LGBTQ plus progressives, how their sort of logical frame, they're kind of hypocritical, it's really about being like the term from GADSAT is the tyranny of the minority,
right?
Which is like, I'm oppressed, therefore you have to listen to everything I say, and if you don't want to sleep with me, well, you're transphobic,
right?
So that's
So let's dig in just a little bit. As we were talking about, it's people are a little bit more touchy now. So if you're a trans man, then women should want to date you, regardless of whether that woman is bisexual or straight or anything like that. That's
or if they have if they have a terrible personality, you're simply just
like
not
anything
to their face, or like you don't have anything in common, like the many other reasons why you wouldn't want to sleep with somebody, for example.
Okay. I was just talking about dating. You're talking about sleeping with. Okay. Doesn't matter.
I mean, but that's, it's the same thing. Why are you dating someone? Like, you're going to want to get in their pants eventually. Like, let's get real here.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's true. So within this realm that has been created with trans people, and trans people are competing in male to female trans people are competing as females in women's sports, which is having an impact, and that's interesting. But within the dating world, trans people expect to be treated as equals of the sex that they're representing, and they're offended when somebody says, no, that's not what I'm interested in. So super straight came up to say, we're so straight that we're only attracted to people who have genitalia of the gender that they're representing. And I thought, checkmate. I thought, wow, like it was that easy? It was that simple? Like, okay, I'm not straight. I'm super straight, just so we're on the same page. And I thought, wow, how did this take so long? Like it was right there. It was low-hanging fruit. It was almost hitting you in the face.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not so much about like, because the LGBTQ plus people are really taking it as a dig on trans people and like, oh, you just don't like transphobe, you're like, you don't like transgenders, and like it's very offensive, blah blah blah. But really it's much more of a really clever critique of what's kind of going on in the LGBTQ plus non-binary, gender fluid, demisexual, uber sexual. Like the joke is these people come up with a new sexuality quite literally every day. Quite literally, there's a new sexuality that comes up. There was even a sexuality of, I only like to have sex with people who I don't know. And it's like, hold on. So you're basically being called like a total random slut is a sexuality now.
Yeah.
And so it's, and the thing is, there is a sort of like virtue or nobility sort of to this LGBTQ plus stuff, because it's like, these are my preferences. Mm-hmm. This is who I am. Right. And it's hilarious with super straight, because like the second someone's like, well, yeah, I have a specific preference of my biological opposite. Mm-hmm. The second that a straight person says, I only want to have sex with biological women or biological men, it's like, whoa, well. And it's like, it's interesting how the second that a straight person has a specific preference, it's transphobic and it's hateful, and you want people to kill themselves, and it's just kind of like, this is ridiculous. You guys make up a sexuality every 5 minutes, and the second that a straight person doubles down, you lose your minds.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, because it's the same double standard, and this does tie into politics. I'm not just, first of all, I want to make really clear that I'm not trying to undermine or demean trans people or anything to that effect, or women or men or anybody at all. I'm not trying to demean anybody for their choices. But what I am trying to say is, it's an interesting.
I am.
Okay. just so we're clear. But what I think is interesting is that it's the double standard of, if somebody on the left says, these are my preferences, it's unquestionable. You cannot say why. Like that doesn't seem to, okay, like if those are your preferences, but we've gotten to a point where you can't question their choices at all. But somebody on the right says, these are my preferences in line with what you've done, right? And now it's like, you can't say that. And it's like, how do you, I wanted to use it to illustrate, we're in a situation where it doesn't matter what we're talking about. If there's this obvious thing, okay, we'll just create our own gender identity that says this in line with the rules. We're playing your game, right? We've figured out your rules. We've made our statement. This is what we prefer. And you can prefer whatever you like, because you're an individual, but this is what we prefer. Or I prefer, whatever you want to call it, the super straight people prefer. And as soon as you take that position, that's not acceptable. And here are the list of many reasons why this is not acceptable. And I think it's worth noting. It's worth noting that there's that parallel, because it's not just in the world of politics. It's not just in the world of dating, right? Trans people versus blah, blah, blah. It's more ways to divide people up. What do you think?
I agree. I do think it actually is very political. And I think a lot of progressivisms, as I like to call it, because all progressivisms relate to political correctness. And I think in many ways, they're designed in a way where it's like, okay, we have this rule now, and we have that rule. Now we have critical race theory. And now we have this, this new transgender standard that's set. And the funny thing about these progressivisms is there are a bunch of rules, right? But they're only enforced in certain ways, and they're only enforced against certain people. So in this case, it's people who want to have a family, man and a wife, biological, have kids. Oh, well, these are the people who are going to be, in trouble for this rule. Everybody else, if you're, trust me, the basic rule is this when it comes to progressivisms and political correctness. If you're going far to the left, the rules really don't apply to you.
Yeah,
You can make up as many rules as you want. It's all fine. But it's like the second that you try to apply the same rules in this direction, no.
Yeah.
No, it's a bunch of rules, and they interestingly are selectively enforced only against certain people. And in many ways, it's like I personally think when it comes to political correctness and all these progressive standards and rules that we make, it's an excuse to just get rid of people and cancel people. It's like, oh well, let's accuse them for this and get them rid of for that reason. And it's like, oh well, this person's doing that. It's like, well, no, we're not going to write about that person. We're not going to get that person in trouble because we don't have a problem with that person.
Yep.
We have a problem with this person, so we're going to apply one of our made up rules to these people because they're a problem. We need to get rid of them.
Yeah, Cardi B is another good example. The strip show that got the budget hotel basement show that got put on as the Grammys. Did you see any of that? It was terrible.
No.
They were they were writhing around on the stage, and I mean, Cardi B is not your traditional beauty. Let's just say. Have you seen Cardi B? Yeah,
Cardi B is a former stripper turned like superstar, like music.
Oh well, yeah.
Apparently, she used to be a stripper. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. So yeah, the whole Cardi B thing, and I watched about 10 seconds before I was like, "Where's the eye bleach?"
Oh yeah, if I'm not mistaken, she used to be a stripper, and all the music execs were like, "Who do we want to be the next role model for young women in the music industry?"
Yeah.
How about this this loudmouthed explicitive?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, "Baby It's Cold Outside" is exploiting women, but Cardi B's motel basement performance at the Grammys was stunning and brave. Right? Stunning and brave.
I mean, yeah. The more you try to look at pop culture and how it relates, it's almost like pop culture goes against like progressive politics, and no one talks about it. It's like, yeah, we need to empower women. Also, 50 Shades of Grey is like a top seller.
Yeah. And please let's watch this strip show for the Grammys. It's cool. It's cool.
It's empowerment.
And her nails are just like somebody should tell her she should get a nail file and work on that. Okay, John Tory says, moving on. Shots in arms. That's the tweet. That's it. Says John Tory. We should talk about what's her face girl, but we won't. Not right now. And after John Tory sends the shots in arms tweet, Global News is saying Moderna begins testing its COVID-19 vaccine on young children. The study intends to enroll about 6,750 children in the United States and Canada. So, shots in arms. Interesting, right? We've got some AstraZeneca news to talk about too. What do you think?
So, yep. So I don't like to be too obsessive over numbers, but it is inspiring that John Tory's tweet from 2 days ago, when he has over 300K followers, has very low engagement. So I'm hoping not many people liked that tweet. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last time, but it's so funny because, like, we were talking about the deadliness of COVID. We were talking about the lockdown, all the rules. And now we're talking about the vaccines. And it's almost like we haven't even settled the first two conversations, and it's just vaccine.
Yeah.
And another thing that was force-fed to me on my Twitter today was, well, AstraZeneca is safe, says like researchers or I don't know, officials. It was officials. That was the word. The officials said it's okay. And it's like, well, entire countries said that this vaccine is not okay. So I know that your official said it's safe, but entire countries said that this vaccine is not okay.
Yeah.
So officials, entire countries.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'll just bring up the AstraZeneca tabs here. It says Canada soldiers bravely on with AstraZeneca. As also notable is the use of the term jab, most commonly used in boxing. We don't call it jabs here, and now that term has been adopted. But anyway, Ireland hits pause on AstraZeneca jab over blood clot concerns. But Sky News says Oxford AstraZeneca jab is excellent with no reason not to use it, says WHO. This is on the 12th of March. I think 3 or 4 more countries after this was reported have stopped using AstraZeneca as well. So, yeah, it seems like the NACI, which is the National Vaccine People, I guess, are the ones recommending that it's fine to extend the dose to outside of the manufacturer's tested dosing regime. and it's fine to give people who are over 65 AstraZeneca, but they don't have data to back it up as far as I know. The people who did the AstraZeneca trials don't have data for above 65, so that's why they were initially saying 60 to 64. So it seems
Yeah,
weird to me, right? Like, seems strange.
yeah, and for anybody who follows this stuff on a deeper level, it really dismantles the whole health and safety narrative that much more, right?
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, oh no, we can't get one more person sick. We can't put anyone in danger. Although this vaccine that has been banned in certain countries, yeah, well, we're going to just pump you up with that because
Yeah.
I
Because
don't
we
know,
could get the dose.
because we're selling vaccines because we're so desperate to like get back to normal. Like I don't know, it's
Well, I mean, because they got the doses, right? Because they spent all that money on the doses, and now we've got them. We got to give them out to people. So it's
right, right.
it's pretty icky if you ask me.
It's really icky because the only thing that makes all of this make sense to people is the fear and anxiety that
Mm-hmm.
they're constantly pumping into people 24/7 through the news, through the radio. It's so twisted. I don't consume this stuff, but it's like a lot of people who I talk to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just more like, oh, well, I just need to get that vaccine, and all get back to normal. And it's like this is the same thing as the 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
You remember
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just 2 more weeks. Oh, it's just a shot,
Yeah.
and it's just yeah.
After the shot is found to be not so effective, people will be upset. Here's the not Randy Hillier, Rick Hillier, who's the general. He's head of Ontario's vaccine task force, set to leave as province's vaccine booking system launches. Apparently, his order in council was set to expire on March 31st. If things were going swimmingly, I mean, I might exit anyway. I might have been like, I'll be here for a year and then I'm gone no matter what's happening on March 31st. I'm walking out that door. But it's quite interesting to see. I mean, they're talking about the vaccine booking system having problems. They're talking about the AstraZeneca issues. They're talking about all sorts of issues with this. And the head of Ontario's vaccine task force, see you later. Good timing. Excellent timing.
I don't know, man. It just seems like it seems just like a bunch of theater, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I don't even know what to say on that. I'm just so disappointed how it's just like vaccine or bust. Everyone's just like, well, I need to get my vaccine now, and
Yeah,
it's
that's an interesting aspect of the propaganda machine. There was very little pushback or push to use therapeutics to get back to normal before there was a vaccine. Now there's very little push or skepticism on the rapid development of this vaccine. Like if somebody said to me, "Listen, we've got this thing to sell you. Usually, it takes 10 years to develop one." And after the 10 years after it's been developed, sometimes they find issues after 15 years, but we developed it in 1 year. And we'd like to sell it to you for the low, low price of all this money. I'd be like, you developed it in 1 year. Eh? How's the safety testing going? I'd be skeptical, right? But it doesn't seem like everybody's like, they produced it in a year. They're miracle workers. And then people started, having blood clots and having concerns with the vaccine.
yeah.
It's not a selling point for me.
Yeah, and for me, it's the principle that's the scariest part about all this. It's like I try to explain to people, have you been to Service Ontario? Have you been to Service Canada? Have you dealt with the slow and painful process of bureaucracy of dealing with, the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency? It's something that's frustrating. It's something that moves slow. It's clunky. It's very disorganized. And guess what? Like that's part of the crappy aspect of dealing with the government. And we have to do it. And it's not good. With this COVID stuff, we're just inviting that into every corner of our lives,
Yep.
corner of our lives. And we're actually injecting it into our very veins.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that whole premise of like, we're going to let Service Ontario inject us. I know it's technically Canada Public Health, but it's still like the slow bureaucracy. And it's like, we want to give all that away. Like it's totally normal for Service Canada to be able to inject me with whatever they want, whenever they want. Because it's like, have you seen what's gone on this past year? Like that's where things are headed. Routine vaccines, your papers, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we'll see how this video ages, but like, the date is what, March 2021. It's a conspiracy theory now. So what's the forecast? 3 months from now, it'll be sound policy that we'll all be talking about. Oh yes, the papers, of course.
There are no isolation hotels. There are no isolation centers. What are you talking about? That's a right-wing conspiracy theory. We don't talk about that in Canada. Ho, we're so free, right? Oh,
it's all so tiresome. It's all so tiresome. I'm trying to think of the right hashtag for all this too, because I've finally gotten the stomach to do more of the research on COVID, and it sounds like there are, if it's caught early, there are other treatments that can be applied. And I won't name names because I don't want to get this channel nuked.
Yep.
But essentially, it's interesting how that is not really talked about or featured. We've just gone all the way over to okay, let's just focus on the vaccines. Let's not talk about vitamin D or anything like that, or zinc or all these other treatments that can be caught early. Let's actually just tell people to stay at home until things get worse, and then hook them up to a ventilator and let their lungs explode. Anyway, you know what? I'm not going to go there.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go there.
It is frustrating because it seems like there's a lot we could do, and it seems like there's a lot that has remained undone, and it doesn't seem like there's any real way to hold the people in charge accountable, and that's a real problem, because when people don't feel like they have representation, it's problematic. It's problematic. People need to feel like they participate in the democratic system, even if they're not, right? Even if they don't have a say. So.
And a lot of the times I find that when I've actually had the patience to watch the news, does the opposite of what the news should. It just adds more uncertainty, more confusion, more anxiety. Yeah. And it's funny, when I've done the deeper research on COVID, there's actually more clarity and certainty than I've ever seen. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, people aren't dropping dead like flies all over the place, like you might learn if you're watching CTV. But what I was going to say is, they got it backwards, because the news is always like, there's been this misinformation going on, a lot of misinformation. It's like, misinformation? No, there's been missed information, information that has been missed that you guys aren't talking about. Wow. And to this day, it's so insane how, to this day, public officials and our journalists on TV, like, there is no amount of detail when it comes to COVID. It's a case or it's a death. And that's it. And we're not going to tell you any specifics if there was comorbidities. We're not going to tell you any specifics if there's the false positives or PCR or the average age of the person that died. It's like, it's insulting. It's insulting for anybody who wants to know more about what's actually going on.
Yep. Yeah, they're not, and they're removing more data every week as I use it to prove things to my health unit. They remove the data, or they make it more difficult to access, and that's weird too. But I have to cut it short because I have to go get my kids. I think that we've encapsulated it all pretty well, though. Things are crazy, and they're getting crazier. So, what do you? Final words?
Final words, a great breathing exercise is called a 4-5-7. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 5 seconds, and then you exhale for 7. It's a great way to just kind of chill out, put your phone down. Because, things are getting crazier, and I think it's important to learn how to roll with the punches and kind of distance and almost detach yourself from this, parallel reality that people seem to be living in.
For sure. I just go scream in my garage.
Hey, exercise. If you can break a sweat, if you can exert yourself, that's great too, man. Great.
All right, where can people find you?
Find me on YouTube at Greg Wycliffe. I'm also on Twitter, and I'm on TikTok, having a lot of fun on TikTok. My tag there and on Twitter is GDub, GDDUB. Check me out there.
I wish I had hand signals. You can find me at CanadaPoly.com. And oh my goodness, I lost my rhythm there. You can find me at CanadaPoly.com and my scratch pad at CanadaReport.co. That's where I put my ideas down and stuff. And you can look at Greg and my back catalog at SpeakingMoistly.co. Thanks for watching, everybody. Here's the Prime Minister to play us out. Enjoy your week. We'll be back again next week, right?
Yep. See you then.
All right. Awesome.
Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.